What's up, football matter?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm alright. Talk football. How you doing?
Great, great.
Okay.
La Liga or the Premier League?
The Premier League all day.
How?
The Premier League is more exciting. The Premier League is more competitive.
Well, we're going to see that. Now you're going to discuss it and see.
Yeah.
Guys, if you agree with us, if you agree with football matter, Premier League is better than La Liga, type down. If you agree with me, La Liga is better than the Premier League, type down as well. Let's go. But when you think, or when someone says Premier League, what characteristics comes to your mind and why?
Okay. The normal characteristics that comes to mind is one, physicality. Second, the fast-paced nature of the Premier League, athleticism, and that competitiveness between teams.
Competitiveness. Wow, that's actually controversial because if you look into the last 10 years in the Premier League, we can tell it was sky blue. So where is the competitiveness?
The competitiveness is not only in the team that goes up with, there will only be one winner, and in the last 10 years, there is only one team that's invested more or has that stability, even if you go in the last 20 years or 30 years, Man United will be the dominant team. But when you look at the other teams in the table, there has always been changes or surprises in the top four, and it's gone from top four now to top six in the Premier League because of how competitive it is.
I mean, to be honest, yes, I see your point that the Premier League is definitely competitive when you talk about Champions League seats and Europa League seats and all of these kind of things. But I also feel like this top four, top six story is just for for more like generating more drama, trends, and all these kind of things. Because what is the business of Tottenham to be in the top six? And I mean, I just don't, you know what I mean? I don't get it. Like, where is, are we talking about Manchester United? With all due respect, of course, Manchester United is one of the greatest teams. But like in the last 6-7 years, why is Manchester United in top four? Like, or considered one of the top six in the Premier League? I feel like the Premier League industry kind of pushing these kind of narratives, like, just to generate more, like to get more views, to get people talking, no?
No, it's not to generate more view. It's called the traditional Premier League top four. And if you go, the Premier League started in 1992. And if you go in the last 30 years, these four teams has always come, the average position has been always first to fourth. Why the Tottenham and Man City is now included is because in the last maybe 20, 15 years, the average position is in the top six. So yeah, Tottenham have been in the top six more than others like Aston Villa, Newcastle, because they have been in the Champions League a lot, as well as Man City and the rest of the four other teams.
That's what to take us. I think again, I actually do believe genuinely that the Premier League, the organizers, they are pretty smart in kind of like bringing this kind of talk, because I'm pretty sure as well in the next 10 years, if the growth rate for the Premier League continues in the same way, we're going to hear now like the traditional top 8 or something like that. Because for instance, like for this season, they're going to be 5 teams from the Premier League in the Champions League.
Yeah, definitely.
And I do believe that in the next 5 years, maybe we'll always have 5 teams, because yeah, it just seemed like it. That just take me to talk about actually the financial capacity and power of the Premier League in comparison to La Liga.
Yeah, you have also to give credit to the management of the Premier League, the way they share their financial distribution is pretty much better than La Liga. You understand? The La Liga, the top dogs, the Real Madrid and Barcelona, they take the large chunk of the revenue generated from the TV rights or whatsoever. But in the Premier League, 50% of it is shared equally to all the teams. And at the end of the day, they also have the way they share the other deals, which benefits the other teams in there. And that's the reason why they are able to compete in the transfer market much more than the La Liga teams can.
Yeah, I agree with you. And again, I feel like this management that also leads this also to separate the two leagues pretty big, because you can see like teams like Nottingham Forest are pretty much capable of buying players ahead of Atletico Madrid, ahead of like maybe Athletic Bilbao will not even come closer, and this is just this gap will only increase. But also this financial gap itself plays in the favor of the Premier League teams, not the teams that being promoted newly to the Premier League.
Yeah.
No, or yeah. So I think it is definitely going to only to get bigger, and that definitely helps the Premier League teams to dominate even more. But if we're talking about the dominance of the La Liga teams and the Premier League teams in the Champions League, we can clearly see that La Liga clears the Premier League.
Yeah, the only way, yeah, I agree that La Liga clears in the sense they have more success, they have more trophies, and when we talk about it, it's just Real Madrid and Barcelona. Just these last 6 years, we've got 3 teams from the Premier League win the Champions League. You understand? And when you stretch it to the
But we
Europa,
got also 3 teams from La Liga won it.
in the last 6 years,
Yeah.
which 3 teams have won the Champions League on La Liga?
Real Madrid.
And who?
Real Madrid.
No, it's
Real
just
Madrid.
it's just one team. We've got Liverpool, we've got Man City, and we've got Chelsea win the Champions League. It's different teams, So that's one of the more reasons why we talk about this competitiveness and stuff like that. It's not the same with La Liga, and the reason why in La Liga, Barcelona and Real Madrid are even competing is because they take a lot of revenue meant for other teams. So they suffer and then they reach themselves and are able to compete in all fronts by buying a lot of good stars and having players for themselves. So they have good depth to compete in all fronts. But the Premier League, but in the Premier League is different. We share the revenue much more better and equally than.
But you still in the Premier League, the money that is spent on buying players is way higher than the money's been. Like for instance, if we're taking, let's take like as you said, like the traditional top 4, or like the top 6 teams that definitely spend way more money than Barcelona and Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid combined in the past 5 years. It's just, they just go buy players and it just doesn't click because at the end of the day, who is the GOAT in these kind of competitions.
No. There is the Premier League price and then there is other league price. When the Premier League goes in to buy players, because the Premier League is the big boys, you understand? they give the Premier League VIP prizes or the Premier League prize. But if the La Liga team, because they are quite poor, they give them the La Liga prizes. So that's just it.
Yeah. You kind of, I kind of see your point, but I just disagree with this big boys narrative. But yeah, it's cool because still I'm backing my La Liga. Because, like this, I mean, the La Liga is the tactical, supremacy, I'll say, or superiority of the La Liga is passing the Premier League. And I'll tell you why. Because nowadays, La Liga is very, very, the Premier League is very, attractive to go and sign Spanish coaches.
Yeah, I give it to Spanish, culture or Spanish clubs or the Spanish team. They have better coaches and their players are also better technically, and the Spanish coaches are more, better tactically. If you look at England coaches, I don't know the last time an English manager or British manager won the Premier League. So, and if you look at the most sacked managers and, Gary Neville and stuff like that, they've been sacked around. They've not got good coach, but it's also improved the Premier League now, with the diversity in the managers and the players. That's the reason why in the last few years, the Premier League is competing better, because these guys bring their philosophy, they bring their tactical intelligence and impute in the players. It can also be seen in the national team for England, 2 Euro finals, World Cup semi-final, what the other golden generation could not attain or achieve. So it's helping the Premier League as well. And the Premier League need to invest, just like the Spanish national team, the way they invest in their grassroots teams, their grassroots development. Premier League will prefer to develop other foreign young players or teenagers than invest in their grassroots.
So you think that the systems or the style of play helps players to also develop or improve individually?
Yeah. Teams, just look at Barcelona. They are suffering from depth, but they are still competing. They're in the Champions League semi-final. Why? Because of the academy. Look at their first team this season. It's full of the academy products. It's something that the Premier League does not have or cannot. There's no club in the Premier League that can do that. Go to their youth team to bring players just like that and in the Premier League, and then they're able to play at that same level. Not only the Barcelona team, you go to the Basque region, you go to Real Sociedad, the variety of players that have produced Xabi Alonso, Mikel Oyarzabal, Inigo, a lot of them, go to Atletico Bilbao, Inaki Williams' brother, a lot of them that have produced players. And the other teams even Real Madrid has got players that's come out from their team. Maybe they are not in the first team, but they are doing well outside. So the investment in the grassroots team helps La Liga better than the Premier League.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and also that leads me to talk about what does the two leagues need to do in order for them to compete. Because again, if we look into it, we see that the La Liga has specific characteristics, that the league is pretty much slower, but the players in general, they have like good technical kind of understanding and also ability, and also they have good coaches, they have good, well coached players. On the other hand, you have in the Premier League, they have the athleticism, the physical attributes, and a way faster pace, and also like very well managed league. What does La Liga need to do in order for them to compete with the Premier League and vice versa?
Okay, let me start with the Premier League. What the Premier League needs to do is to invest in their grassroots, football. I feel, some teams are doing it, like Manchester City, Chelsea have produced a lot of players, but other teams like Liverpool, Man U, Arsenal need to do more. There needs to be a greater pool of players coming out. And if you look at the players now coming out, like Man City, Nico Lewis, he's technically good in those tight regions, Cole Palmer, Foden, all the players, Sancho, and a lot of them are quite good and they can compete. So the more they invest more, is going to, in that grassroots, is going to shape the way these players play and their understanding about the game, and not just the long balls and stuff like that. So if they do that, it will limit the money they also spend in buying players as well. And then in the other side, for the La Liga team or the La Liga, there need to be flexibility in their policy of sharing revenue. Their revenue distribution is very poor. It doesn't give the younger teams or the average or middle table teams ability to compete with the big boys. And then as well, the Basque region, like the Atletico Bilbao, have the policy of only signing players from the Basque region. It's not good enough. That doesn't encourage the team to grow or competitiveness, because you're going to have the same set of players, the same culture. It doesn't bring variety, it doesn't bring competition in the team. So, yeah.
People put most of the blame on Javier Tebas when it comes to the status of the La Liga nowadays, because it's not even the top two league or top three leagues in the world, and this is very, very big decline for the La Liga. Do you also agree that Javier Tebas is the man to blame?
I don't think the blame is solely to be on him. I think the blame can only go 40%, not 60%. Why? Because Javier Tebas is actually voted for to be the La Liga president. And the voting comes from the La Liga, and then the second side, the first division or something like that, is voted by 42 different clubs. And if, as much as Real Madrid and Barcelona do not agree with him, the other middle table teams agree with him, because he is actually improving. He's actually working. You understand?
Well.
What he's doing is strict. You understand? He affects the big boys because he doesn't allow them to spend without being checked. If you look at La Liga, you've seen a lot of teams suffer because of financial debt, financial crisis. We've seen Deportivo La Corona, who was one
historic club as well.
Yeah, who won the La Liga in 2000, was in the Champions League semi-final in 2004. Now they are gone. We saw we saw Malaga, we saw Valencia now suffering the same debt, and Sevilla. You understand? He's trying to put the sporting directors to work. You understand? To not just spend money, but to ration their spending or spend wisely. When these things are put in place, they will get better. You understand? So it helps that with those La Liga rules, if they are able to meet that La Liga rule, there will be no need for them to fail in the UEFA rule, what's it called? FFP or something like that. So that's what it, but again, he needs to find a way to balance it and then share revenue equally so that the other teams can compete.
Yeah, definitely. It has to be, for the benefit of everyone. You cannot just, make or like you cannot just make the league dependent on two teams. And when it's two big teams like Barcelona and Real Madrid, they will also benefit if the team is more competitive in the long terms, because you need to kind of improve the level of your squads. We see like a team like Real Madrid is currently second in the Liga table, which and Real Madrid arguably having one of the worst seasons, but they're still second in La Liga, and they got slapped left and right by teams from other leagues. So I think it is very important as well for the whole competition as well. But at the same time, I feel also like Javier Tebas having a lot of power in deciding on things. I feel like this is not healthy for the league itself.
Yeah, it's not healthy. When one man is at the top, it's always one dimensional. You go with whatever he thinks about. But then again, another part, he has to make the La Liga more appealing.
Yeah,
and he also has to invest on the media, and then the marketing. He has to market La Liga well to Asian countries and then the North American as well as African countries. That way, in their country, which is made up of different people from different regions, they will want to watch their leagues because they have some empty stadium, or their fans or their stadiums are not as filled as that of the Premier League.
Yeah. Of course, part of it is also the financial thing, because you're talking about Spain and comparing it to England is a bit different. But yeah, I think you're just right. But now,
but again, it's better to have to sell the tickets lower. Although even it's not that expensive, but it's better to have a filled stadium than not to have, even if you can make the ticket more lower, when the days are coming nearer or something like that, than to just have some empty stadium.
Yeah, you're right. But now, the moment of truth. The Premier League all-time 11 for you. Let's go.
I'll go in goal, Peter Cech. Notable mention, Peter Schmeichel, what he did for Manchester United and Manchester City, respect. But
I agree.
It's Peter Cech for me. On the right back, I'll go with Kai Walker. On the left back, I'll go with Ashley Cole. If you like Arsenal fans, we call him Cashley. But then on the two center backs I'm going to go with is Rio Ferdinand and then John Terry. My midfield, I'm going for players that they are in their peak. They were unstoppable. Respect to those guys that have legacy, they have trophies and longevity. But I'm going to players that in their peak, they were just so untouchable. So I'm going to go with N'Golo Kante, I'm going to go with Yaya Toure, and I'm going to go with Frank Lampard. Then in my front three, I'm going to have obviously Eden Hazard and Cristiano Ronaldo on the wings, and then the striker will be Thierry Henry.
Wow, solid. I cannot argue. I think it is just I want to have Sol Campbell somewhere, and I definitely want to see Fabregas in that lineup. But other than that, I am happy with your choice. Let's move to La Liga.
Okay. For La Liga, it's going to be predominantly, the two big dogs in the La Liga teams, Barcelona and Real Madrid. So in goal post, I'm also going to go for players that in their prime, they are much more untouchable than anybody. So my heart tells me Casillas in goal, but I'm looking at players that before he's done playing football, he might be top 2 or top 3, and he's not going to be number 3. I'm going to go with Thibaut Courtois. He can single-handedly win, whether it's Champions League or La Liga. Then Ania is as much as a modern day goalkeeper, as much as a traditional day goalkeeper. On the right back, I've got to go with Dani Carvajal. There is Salgado, there is Dani Alves, but I feel like he's more complete defensively and attacking-wise. He's more balanced, and he has the longevity and all the trophies as well. In my centre-backs, I'm going to go with Gerard Piqué and Sergio Ramos. And then on the left back, there is Jordi Alba, there is Marcelo, but there is one Roberto Carlos. What he gave to Real Madrid from 1996 to 2006 was massive, defensively strong. Then you can't talk about those crosses that comes like a shot, and then he shots from wide range, free kicks. He's just a threat everywhere, and he's got speed on his legs. Then in the midfield trio of Barcelona, the modern era, you've got Busquets, Xavi, and Iniesta. Good
Big
mentions
time
to Toni
disagree.
Kroos, Modric, and Casemiro, Zidane, and stuff like that. But these guys are just untouchable in their, playing together.
Modric, Kroos, and Zizou.
And then in my right wing, I've got, Lionel Messi, obviously. Left wing, obviously.
This is the
Cristiano
only
Ronaldo.
position where I agree with you.
Cristiano Ronaldo. And then number 9, the best striker of his generation. Yeah, not all time, but the best striker of his generation, Luis Suarez.
Karim Benzema,
Pistolero.
obviously.
Pistolero.
Karim Benzema, obviously.
So yeah, those are my 11. Yeah.
And this is our lab. We just talked about Premier League versus La Liga. If you want to watch us in the next or the upcoming video, stay tuned and make sure you're following us. Make sure you're supporting, comments, like, and share.
I like and share, guys. Thank you very much. And tell me your thoughts. I'll be on the comment section. Capitalist and analyst, Space Fire and Football Encyclopedia. Peace, no shades.